Hi, welcome to another episode of the still untitled podcast by NOTSTEAM Productions. We need to think of a name because this is getting too long to say, and I try and keep it fresh.
We haven't even come up with any suggestions, man. There's no suggestions either.
No,
I don't know.
Maybe we could pay somebody to just come up with a suggestion. But I'm El Grimshaw, and as always, joined by my good friend
Liam. Hello, guys.
Hello, I'm not Elliot. As you said last week, I never picked up on that until I listened to it back.
Yeah,
I just because obviously I introduced myself as El Grimshaw. I just thought you'd use my full legal name. I thought you'd just say Ellis, and I was like, "Oh right, no, it's fine. That's my name." No, you called me fucking Elliot, you dick.
Yeah, completely the wrong name. But I realised straight away, and I apologised.
Yeah, it's fine. It's still in there. My sort of editing process is just remove some of the awkward gaps and just leave the rest in.
Yeah, I think that's the best way.
Yeah, it's too much effort.
That's not what I meant, but yeah, okay.
So let's start off. It's me that's done the script this week. So let's start off with what have you been playing, what have you been watching?
Of course, as always. But playing wise, I've just downloaded Watch Dogs 2 again.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Watch Dogs. I think both of us came to the consensus that Watch Dogs 2 is the best of the sort of trilogy.
Yeah.
Watch Dogs Legion has some good ideas, but it's cool that it's set in London.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I've probably only played a couple of hours, and yeah, I forgot how sort of vibrant the city is.
Yeah,
a lot of colour everywhere. It's really beautiful. I like all the different clothes you can get as well. I've kitted him out big time, probably 3 or 4 times over already, and yeah, I just like the whole vibe of it, the Dead Tech crew that you meet and the different characters in there. Yeah, I think, and the story. It's not bad either. It progresses.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah.
From what obviously the first one you play is a lone vigilante, and it's just kind of a bleak game. I think it's set in Seattle. The first one.
Chicago.
Might be. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's Chicago.
I think it is. I think they mentioned the Chicago incident.
Yeah, they do.
Second game. So yeah, I think it is.
But it wasn't a fun game to play. It was one of those that when it was first announced at E3 many months ago, it looked very impressive. But then when it
was kind of like the equivalent of Assassin's Creed, like the first Assassin's Creed. There was a basis there. There was a really good game in there. The mechanics are really cool. In Watch Dogs, you're interacting with the environment and vehicles and people through hacking and stuff, which is still. I've had a lot of fun with those mechanics on the second one. But yeah, they always improve it on that second inning with better story, better characters, and they improve on the mechanics as well. So yeah.
And then they just sort of lose the plot and they start just introducing things that don't need to be in there. But one thing that I did really enjoy in Watch Dogs, 2 things that I really enjoyed in Watch Dogs 2, the sheer level of memes that are just plastered around the city. There's one that always makes me chuckle when I walk past it, which is anything can be a dildo if you're brave enough.
That's true.
It is true. And then there's the whole taxi missions that I just really enjoy doing.
Yeah, they've got different modifiers to them. So some people want you to go at the speed limit and or fast, and some people want you to jump some stuff or get chased by the police.
So that was kind of funny. It reminded me a lot of I don't know if you ever played it, Crazy Taxi, which
of course,
Dreamcast era. But Watch Dogs 2 is pretty decent. It's one of those. It's the best of the 3. I've been playing a cool little indie game, sticking with the theme of dogs, I suppose, called Stray, which is about a cat. So not sticking with dogs, but they go hand in hand.
4-legged creatures.
And I'll be honest, it's a surprisingly dark game. Because it's set in like a dystopian future where humans have basically vanished. And it's kind of cyberpunky. And you play as a cat that's basically trying to get back to its pack, herd, whatever a collective of cats is called, a gang, after you get separated. And okay, the gameplay is not massive. There's not combat, or at least not where I've got to yet. But it is just a really good little exploration game where, you know, your whole point is you're a cat. So you jump up on things, you knock shit down, you pair at things. And there's just like little things about the game that just make it so worth investing time into. Because like there's these robots within the slums, and every time you sort of like go near one, you can like brush up against its leg, and it'll like a little love heart come up on the screen as it looks at you, and like they'll pet you, and it's just a fun little indie.
Is there a dedicated meow button?
There is a dedicated meow button.
Oh.
Although it is a bit disappointing because I wanted to be able to like spam it and just be able to like sing in cat form, but I can't, which is really disappointing. There isn't a scratch button either, which is kind of annoying. Like, you know, I want to be able to go around and just scratch everything that I see. Like, there are certain things like you can, so like say if there's a rug on the floor, you can do the weird cat thing that cats do.
Oh yeah, like plucking at the rug.
Yeah, like plucking the nails, whatever the fuck it is they do. I did used to have a cat, by the way.
Still weird creatures.
They're just assholes with fur. But I love them for that aspect. But yeah, there's some quite dark bits within it. Like part of it as you're sort of exploring, you've got this robot that basically acts as your wayfinder,
right,
and like explains what's going on, because obviously the cat doesn't talk. Like, you're not like the cat's not going, oh, I need to go this direction.
It's not fucking Boots and Shrek.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of disappointing to me.
What was just pull out a sword and just be like, sing. And there's no talking donkey as of yet, which I'm kind of glad about. But yeah, it's kind of fun. I'm kind of enjoying it. And I've also been playing a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy, which it's good, but it's very basic. It's just, it reminds me of, do you remember like whenever like a big sort of like movie had come out, like Lord of the Rings or something, and there'd always be like a tie-in video game to it.
Yeah, like a licensed game.
Yeah, and it'd always be the same sort of, go here, kill all these enemies, progress. Go here, kill all these enemies, progress. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, but the added bonus, I know you've played it because you recommended it to me, but the thing that does make it better for me is the little bits of like dialogue in between and the sort of humor.
Yeah, that gets better as the game goes on as well. Like
I have noticed. I'm about
really good
7 chapters in.
Right. I can't remember how many chapters there were, but how long have you been playing, roughly?
A couple of hours.
Right, yeah. You're not even halfway then, I don't think.
Yeah, I've just got to the bit where you find out Peter's...
okay, yeah, I know where you're up to. Yeah. No, you've got ages to go yet, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, I like the bits on the ship where...
I was going to say, make sure you do all the bits on the ship. Speak to everyone when any chance you get, because it's surprising how good the characters are. Because obviously there's always that thing. There's going to be that thing when they make a Marvel game, but it's not the same representation as the MCU. You know, so the different versions of the same characters.
Yeah,
that's always going to be there, and I think the way that they've sort of made the characters in, like the way they've fleshed them out in the game, they've sort of differentiated them enough so that they're not
They're
like
their own sort of being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like for example, the like Star-Lord in the films, he's kind of a doofus and like kind of dumb and a bit of a a bit useless, and but in the game he's a bit more switched on, and he's still sarcastic and he's still quite funny, but I think he's just a bit more switched on and a bit sharper.
One of my favorite recurring themes so far is when you're on the ship. I can't remember what it's called. The Milano.
Yeah.
When you're on the Milano, and obviously there's the toilet, the bathroom area, and occasionally when you're sort of wandering around the ship, you'll notice that the door is locked, and you can like go and knock on and find out who's inside. And I've noticed a recurring theme of started off with Rocket using Peter's toothbrush, not what it was intended for. And I just thought, oh, funny little joke. And then did a mission, came back onto the Milano, and then knocked on again. And there was Gamora using Peter's toothbrush. So I'm waiting to get through all of them. And I've also noticed there's like little things that have been added into it, like there's the fridge door that's always open, and I can't leave the ship without shutting the fridge door.
Little things like that. That's nothing. That didn't need to be there at all.
No, not at all.
It doesn't really add anything, but it's just, I don't know. It does add something. It adds a bit, almost like a sense of realism. Like these people actually live on this ship together, and it's like, who's leaving the damn fridge open? It's like a nice little family touch, isn't it?
So, out of curiosity, we'll get on to what we've been watching, because there is a few things I want to discuss in that. But because I know you've recently been playing Mass Effect, and I can sort of see that Guardians of the Galaxy is very much like a more tongue-in-cheek version of Mass Effect, with a bit more
lifted from it, especially with the ship stuff in between.
And the sort of like dialogue options where you've always got two options, and you've got like usually it's the option to side with either like say Rocket or Gamora, or you can like say use Groot as bait, or you can use Drax as bait. And where do you stand like for like a sort of space opera game? Which would you say is the one that which one would you recommend to somebody that's never played a space opera game?
Well, I think I would argue that Guardians of the Galaxy isn't a space opera, really. I know it is, but you don't have the same freedom in that as you do in that. So it depends what you're after. If you're after a more linear sort of, shooter, really, in a way.
Yeah, it is a bit sort of,
and it's more light-hearted as well. There are like touching moments here and there, but there's a lot of comedy in it. Whereas with Mass Effect, it's more of a self-serious thing, and it's more RPG as well, especially the second one. But yeah, I would say Mass Effect 2 is probably
still up there as being the thing. Yeah. I would like to see maybe BioWare, if they were ever interested in doing like a Marvel thing. I'd quite like to see them do a Guardians of the Galaxy game. Sorry. Because one of the things I think works really well with Guardians of the Galaxy is that you don't necessarily have to have an overarching story. Obviously they've chosen to, but you could just literally have it where you're trying to build up your reputation.
Picking up the press calls and going on rescue missions and
I think that could work really well, especially with like say BioWare. The one thing that does disappoint me a little bit, and I know why they've done it, because it may be difficult to make the gameplay translate for each of the characters, but I'd like to be able to play as like say Rocket or Drax or Groot, like you can in the Avengers game. But at the same time, I do understand why they've done it, because obviously the game play style would be completely different for each character.
Yeah, it would.
But moving on from one space opera to another, I've been watching, finished watching Mandalorian.
Oh yeah,
It's so good.
it is good, yeah.
It's so good. I would argue that because out of all the Star Wars films, my favorite's Rogue One, which I know is a bit of a controversial choice.
I get it though. It's a very, very good film.
It is an amazing film. I think
it's the only one that's it gets close to the originals for me. Anyway.
I felt the thing is with the sort of Star Wars thing, because I love Star Wars. Like I've seen all the films, I've followed it since I was a kid. I'm kind of getting sick of the whole Luke Skywalker and the sort of Emperor Palpatine storyline. It's boring now. And I think we mentioned in like the very first recording that Emperor Snoke, or whatever the fuck he was called, was such a waste of a potential new big bad. Because it turned out he was a puppet of Palpatine. Sorry if you've not seen it, but
come on,
it came out ages ago. And Mandalorian, although I'm not going to spoil it because that is still relatively new, although it does dip its toes in that a little bit, it is effectively, it is a story about this one character who's, going about his journey between the empire and the legs of the Jedi. And I really, really like it. I think it's really good. Pedro Pascal, fantastic.
He's innovated helmet acting, I think. Especially in series 2 when he's a bit more morose, because he's so good, man.
Yeah, well, he's I know we're going to be getting onto this a little bit, but he's obviously going to be playing Joel from Last of Us.
I love that as well. I think that's great.
I think it's great casting, although I'll save it for later, but I have my own vision of who I'd want to play Joel.
So do I, funny enough.
Good, because that was your one job. But it does make me think, because you mentioned in one of the previous podcasts, because you've watched the Halo series, and you said that Master Chief takes his helmet off in the very first episode.
Sorry, yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's fine. And I do like the person that they've got to play Master Chief. But when you look at Mandalorian, like, you don't see his face until the very last episode of season 1. Yeah. And then even then, you don't see his face again, I think, till about...
I think that's all, thinking about it.
No, you do right at the end of season 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's like an episode before where you see it with Bill Burr, which I love his character.
I know. I remember when he turned up, I'm like, Bill Burr?
I just wanted him to start dropping F-bombs
a little bit as well, but in the Mandalorian series and in like the Boba Fett ones as well, there's been loads of celebrity cameos, like actors and comedians and stuff, like playing Stormtrooper, like Jason Sudeikis plays one of the he plays the Stormtrooper that he's on the speeder bike and he picks up Baby Yoda.
That's
Jason Sudeikis, yeah. I had no idea when I watched it first time around. I went back and watched it again. I'm like, of course it is.
Well, I know Simon Pegg's in one of the more recent Star Wars movies, but he's unrecognizable because he plays like some alien. And then you've got no, we're getting off topic because that's
we are.
Right, first, so what have you been watching?
So I'm not sure if it's finished yet. But Better Call Saul. Break, and dude, I'm pretty sure this is the last series, and we're into like the last couple of episodes now. I think it was episode 10 was the last one I watched. So there can't be many episodes left, if any. But wow, man! It's just, obviously I don't want to go into what's going on specifically, but the way it's made, the attention to detail with like some of the montages they do, where it's almost like a 70s music video, or like I don't know, almost like a comic book strip at times.
Yeah,
you know, panels and stuff, but there's something going on, and then leading to the next one in every one of them, and it's like, oh, it's so brilliantly made. And this isn't a spoiler alert, but because it hasn't done this for a little while, but it goes back to the present day with him for a little bit. You know, when it's in black and white.
Yeah.
We've not seen that in a little while, and I'd sort of almost forgotten about that. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like, what's he getting up to modern day? And it goes into that, and
he's a manager at like a Cinnabon or something like that.
He is, yeah. And he's in the most recent episode. I think the entire episode is set in the future or the present day, and it's all black and white. And man, that's one of the best episodes of anything that I've ever seen. It's so brilliantly put together.
I do need to catch up with it. I think I only ended up watching 2 seasons, and then I don't know why. Like, because I absolutely love Breaking Bad. I think Breaking Bad's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. That I would argue that it's one of the greatest TV shows ever made. Vince Gilligan is an absolute fucking genius, and his attention to detail when he's like writing, directing, whatever it is producing, has always been fantastic. Like, I've not seen
nobody does a graphic match as well as Vince Gilligan. It's unreal. Like the amount of times where he'll go from scene to scene to scene with a beautiful graphic match. Like it'll zoom into like a record player, and then it'll come back out and it'll be the pip of an orange or something. You know?
Yeah. Well, I loved, like, I'm not going to say he was the first to ever do it, but he did utilize recording, filming through objects in Breaking Bad. And since then, I've seen it so many times in like other TV shows and other films. He is absolutely fantastic. The only other shout out that I want to quickly make is I also have been catching up on some of the Marvel TV shows. So I've caught up with Moon Knight. Yep. I think that was great. A bit weird, but
it was okay. Yeah, I prefer the comic. The comics are closer to the Punisher.
Yeah.
I kind of hoped that's what they were going to do, but no, I didn't.
I really like the casting. Oscar Isaac as
I agree.
Mark Spector. I think he's great, and his dodgy British accent is hands down one of the best dodgy British accents I've ever heard.
But it sort of works out that it's a dodgy British accent because he's spoiler alert, but yeah.
And I also watched Loki, which again,
that's the best of the Marvel shows, isn't it? Well,
I don't know.
I've seen them all, and it is.
I'm watching Daredevil at the moment, and because there's Daredevil Reborn being made, which I'm pretty certain is Charlie Cox again. I think it's going to be a lot more graphic because it's based on the Frank Miller comics of Daredevil. And I do love the Daredevil TV series. I think it was great. Apart from season 2 let me down a bit, but yeah.
For me, it was because I watched them again recently, and they're just a little bit bloated. They have 10 or 12 episodes a series, some of them. Whereas the Marvel, Disney Plus ones, they're all 6 episodes, and there's not much fat to them. You know what I mean? They're all. It's like I think that's the better way to do it.
I do agree with you that less is more. However, especially with Moon Knight, I did feel that there could have been more.
Oh, you can always put more in, but then it is it of the same quality? Is it? is it bloat that you're putting in? Like what, you know?
Yeah.
Is it another CGI fight scene? You know, it's
yeah. The CGI is a bit dodging it.
Yeah, it's good. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know. It's like
that last sort of epic fight scene. Just I had visions of it being like a Power Rangers.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking. It's like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they get like skyscraper size. Yeah, it was kind of dumb, but
it worked.
I've got one last shout out for watching. It's a show called, I probably mentioned it on the podcast before. It's For All Mankind. Have I mentioned that to you before? Okay, cool.
I don't know, but go on, mention it again.
The quick premise of it is that basically the opening shot of the first episode, so it's not a spoiler, it's the opening shot. It shows the moon landing. It's like an American household, got friends around, having a drink, what have you. And it's showing the moon landing. But then as the camera sort of pans out from the shuttle landing, it's not the Americans that landed, it's the Russians. So it's like an alternate history thing, and that's the point where it's different from what we know, and that basically means that the space race doesn't end because America are like, well, they beat us to the moon.
We're going to beat them twice. We're going to beat them.
Yeah, we need to win something else, and it just keeps going and going and going. It's I think it's really well written. The characters, it's quite interesting because some of the characters are actually based on real people. Yeah, because obviously they were around then. It's like so. They've sort of fleshed out these sort of lesser known like pioneers of space travel that came before the guys that landed on the moon. But they're still pilots, and still like went up into space, and still there was one guy who he nearly landed on the moon, but there was something not quite right, so he had to shoot off or whatever. But I think probably my favorite thing about it is the pacing. So because obviously with space missions there's like 5-6 years of planning and preparation, blah blah blah. When one mission ends and they're talking about the next mission, I was thinking like, are we gonna have like 2 or 3 series now of them preparing for this mission? It's like, nope, the very next episode they've jumped forward 3-4 years and they're about to launch. You're like, buzzing. And last little bit for the show as well. It's like it has really good like twists and sort of shocks that it doesn't allude are coming. Yeah. So it's like there'll be a disaster or whatever, but it won't have the typical Hollywood thing of showing like a like a bolt rattling and slowly coming out of its rivet. None of that. It'll just be like everything's fine, everything's going well, and then boom, everybody's dead. It's so
like my experiences playing what's that game called? Kirby Space Program.
Oh yeah, Kerbal.
Yeah. That's pretty much my experience playing that game. Is that usually everything's going fine and then they all die, and I'm just like, I don't know what I did wrong, and I don't think I've ever actually managed to get into space on that game.
I've managed to get into space, but the bit I always get to is that I get them into space, but then they just keep going forever.
Yeah, so you can't bring them back.
Yeah, so they just go.
Oh forever. Yeah, I've done that. I think I've hurled them into the sun at one point.
I've done that. Yeah.
But going on to our next topic.
Our
first feature. Weirdest cameos. Now, we all love a bit of a weird cameo. Now, part of this was inspired by me watching Free Guy and the out of the blue, the cameo of the Captain America shield and Hulk's left arm, right arm.
Both of them. Was it both? One.
He did the punchy thing. And then a lightsaber.
Do you know how they got the licensing for those as well?
Well,
a little story about it. I think someone just put it on one of the one of like producers or whatever that did Free Man,
Yeah.
put a tweet out saying, "Oh, people have been asking how we got the rights to use the."
I was wondering because that must have been super expensive. And
they rang Disney, asked if they could use them, and Disney like, "Yeah, sure." Like, okay, thanks.
Cool.
Like, sound like exactly. I had the exact same thought as you. Thought that probably cost $1 million for a shield, a fist, and a lightsaber. Like,
yeah, because it's the music as well.
Yeah.
They use music, they use everything, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, I weren't expecting this. And obviously, it's a film that's got quite a few cameos, or at least references to sort of video game culture.
It parodies a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah,
in it well as well. I think.
I love Channing Tatum in that film. I think he's brilliant when it keeps switching back and forth to basically Channing Tatum's character is like the this like guy who lives in his mum's basement, but Channing Tatum plays his avatar, like his on-screen persona.
Yeah.
And, like he's probably like high energy, like come on, we can do it. And then when it switches back to like who's actually playing as him, he's just a bit like, oh my god, like really monotone, really dull. And one of my favorite cameos of all time, and I baffles my head is that one, how it came about, two, why they wasted such an opportunity, and yeah, how much did he get paid? So going way back to the very first season of South Park, do you remember the episode of where Stan's dog is revealed to be gay, and they take him to Big Gay Al's Animal Paradise or something like that?
Vaguely,
Okay.
Very vaguely, yeah.
So his dog's called Sparky or something, or Sparks. Do you know who voiced Sparks the dog or Sparky the dog? It was none other than George Clooney himself.
Really?
Yes, it was George Clooney. His only line in the entire episode, and it was the only episode that the character was ever in, as far as I'm aware. I don't think he ever came back. He only ever says woof woof. He doesn't speak at all.
Oh, I don't remember that at all. I need to Google that later.
Look at the title credit, because they make a big song and dance about it. Because, like, you know how normally it's the they go through like the voice cast, and it's like Trey Parker, Matt Stone, everything like that. In like a big sort of like neon sign, it says guest voice. Or guest actor George Clooney voicing Stan's gay dog, and his lines were just woof woof. Apparently, he was a big fan of the show, big fan of some previous project that they'd done, and basically begged to have a cameo on it.
That's mad. They were like, "Oh, we don't really want to give into that sort of stuff, so let's tell him he's going to be a little gay dog." His only lines are woof woof. There's no way he'll say yes to that. And he's like, fucking right, I'll be there.
Yeah, like, can you imagine being George Clooney's agent, just being like, yeah, so George, this is a bit of a mistake. Somebody's asking you to voice a dog on this crude, badly animated, late night adult comedy show called
Getting cancelled.
Yeah.
Repeatedly cancelled.
Repeatedly cancelled. Should I just tell him no? And then George Clooney's just like, no, I want to do it. But yeah, like just a weird cameo. So can you think of any weird cameos?
Well, I suppose it's not that weird now compared to yours, but I was thinking of obviously Wreck-It Ralph is like one huge cameo of a film. Like there's so many, obviously there's original characters in it, like Ralph himself, of course, but the whole like world that they live in, like the town or whatever you call it, that all the video games live in. Like the bit that I remember most is when he's in counselling or like group therapy.
Yeah, I love it. To be fair,
that's a great scene, and it's going right. The camera's panning round, and there's like Doctor Doom. There's loads of them, but my favorite one, I can't even remember if he's got a line or anything, but it's Kratos. He's just
Kratos, isn't it?
He is, yeah. I remember seeing him like, oh, Kratos is there. That's cool. That's kind of weird. Kids
I need to
film.
rewatch that.
I thought that was kind of weird, you know. Kids film. They shouldn't be playing God of War games.
No. Well,
and it was old. It was original Kratos as well. It wasn't
the more recent one.
No.
I'll have to rewatch that. Because that doesn't really make sense, because that's like bad guy counseling, because you've got Sergey from Street Fighter and what the fuck's the main villain called in Street Fighter series?
BF. Him,
that guy. So they're all bad guys, and I think you've got the Icon of Sin somewhere in Wreck-It Ralph. As well as some throwbacks to some old school games, ones that when I was a kid, I had an arcade simulator on my PC. So I used to play a lot of like retro games, one of which was Tapped, which I absolutely loved. And it's referenced in Wreck-It Ralph. So when he goes to the bar and you see the barman, and there's like multiple kegs, and he's like throwing the pints, that's obviously a reference to the Tapped game series. And then I think in the second Wreck-It Ralph, there's even more references. But I think
I didn't even know there was a second.
It's sort of Disney fodder. It's just like, oh, what more can we do? It kind of takes away from the charm of the first one. But yeah, no, I've seen Wreck-It Ralph a few times because I've got younger siblings, and it was whenever I had to babysit, it was always just put on a Disney film. Shut up. Yeah, so it was usually the Wreck-It Ralph or Frozen. I usually used to go with Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, easy choice.
Yeah. But yeah. Any other weird cameos that you can think of?
No, off the top of my head. I'm ready to move on. If you are
ready to move on. Well, I've got a quick shout out because I've got a new short story that's now available to read. It's not the one that's on the script. It's one that I released yesterday called Between Science and Magic.
Ooh, do you like
science and do you like magic?
Of course. Who doesn't?
Of course. Right. Well, get yourself over to my Patreon and give it a read. And if you like it, share it with your friends. Moving on. Moments to remember, Liam. Video games moments. Now, we did try and record this way back, but I had other motives. I think I spent the rest of the day throwing up. So we're going to try again.
Let's do it.
So let's start with one that shit you up. Now, I'll go first. The main jump scares that's always got me is in the original BioShock. Now, there's a room that you go into, and there's a item at the far end of the room. And if you've played BioShock, which I know you have, it's a very dark game. So there's not much in terms of lighting. Any lighting is usually minimal. So you go to the end of this room, and there's an item waiting for you. You pick it up, you turn around, and all of a sudden there's this person stood there just watching you, and they'll proceed to attack you. And it shits me up every time. But what makes it more annoying is they recreated the exact same jump scare in BioShock Infinite. Same programming, same everything. But this time it was, those like weird, because they didn't really have big daddies in BioShock Infinite. No. They had more just like special enemies. Do you remember those guys that had the weird like gramophones stuck on their head?
Yeah.
It was like in an asylum. Basically, exact same thing. Fucking hated it. You go in, you pick up this item, you turn around, and there's just one stuck there staring at you. Like, why? Why do you do this? And always shits me up. Even if I play it now, I know it's coming. But the way they've done it, the way that they lead you down that path of like security, because as well, especially in Bioshock 1, that area is relatively sparse of enemies. So you kind of lured into this sense of safety.
False sense of security.
Yeah.
It's a good gaming trick, though. You got to give it to him.
I've seen it replicated a few times.
And if it gets you every time, then dude.
They're still bastards.
Yeah.
Well, I am kind of looking forward to the next Bioshock, which is rumored to be working on.
Mm-hmm.
It's, from what I've heard, people have said that it's going to follow more of a Far Cry sort of open world system with the plasmids or vigors, whatever they're going to be called in this variation, are going to be more about traversal as well as like attack and defense.
Okay. Well, when you first said it's going to be like on sort of like a Far Cry model, I was like, oh, great. Being very facetious, because I kind of hate how the Far Cry games were good at 3, and they're exactly the same now. Like, I'm not saying that the new ones are bad games, but
yeah,
they haven't improved. And I always wanted as well, like, if there was going to be a reboot, slightly off topic, but just very quickly, if it was going to be a reboot of Far Cry, like, I'd want them to do what they did in the original Far Cries and give you like animalistic powers, like having run on all fours at full pelt. And
I remember that game series. Now, it wasn't the original Far Cry.
Oh no, it wasn't. It wasn't the original.
Because it was called Far Cry Instincts.
Yeah,
but they were amazing. I love them games because you basically became like a huge, like, well, not a huge monster, but you became like a
predator. You were full on predator. You had like claws. You could leap.
Traps. That was an amazing game series. To be fair, they have with Far Cry 3 more so. Far Cry 5 is pretty cool. I like that, but then I think it's just because you get to kill Christian cultists, which is always going to be a beneficial game for me.
That's kind of sick.
Yeah, but they deserve it because they hate everyone.
They are racists and stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all right-wing nuts.
So, actually, kind of sort of sticking with first-person stuff. My memory that hit me up is, and again, I've played this game twice now, and it's one that we've mentioned a couple of times, but the mimics in Prey.
Yeah.
If you don't know, the mimics are like the small basic enemies in Prey, the ones that you come across the most often and like the earliest. But they can, as you can probably guess by their name, they can disguise themselves as any inanimate object. So
I must admit,
you'll be walking around the corner into a room, and you'll hear the telltale sound of a mimic. So you know there's one there. Like the music, there'll be a little bit of music, but amps up as well. So you're like, oh, okay, yep. So there's definitely one round here, and you're shitting your pants, and you're looking round, and at the start as well, all you've got is a wrench.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, and you're looking round, and like anything that like vibrates, hit it, and you're like, oh no, that's not it. And then eventually you'll just end up whacking everything.
It's like a game of whack-a-mole, isn't it?
The one thing you didn't whack will jump out at you and start like eating your back.
You don't trust anything because like you'll go into a room and it'll be like a desk, and there'll be 2 chairs at either side of this desk, but there'll be 3 mugs on the desk. And you're like, one of you bastards is a mimic. And it won't be. It'll be the fucking chair.
Yeah. It does.
Like, into this false sense of security.
There's a place in it. I think it's an optional place. It's like a lab somewhere. But like every single object in the lab has a post-it on that says not a mimic. And I loved that for that office because I was like, yes, no mimics. But mind you, by that point, you have the thing where you can identify mimics.
Yeah. So, I did love that bit where you were just sort of, because you can just imagine somebody losing their mind in that room, just being like, "That's a mimic." not a mimic. And then they'll look down and there'll be just like one object. It's like, did I already check that? And then just go having like this like inner turmoil of like, what is it? What is it? What is it? Is it a mimic? Is it not a mimic? Yeah, no, they did shit me up a few times. The thing is as well, they're really fast. So like you'll see it like spring out, and then you'll sort of like try and, because that's when you need your tracker thing on them, because it makes it a hell of a lot easier to navigate. But first few times, like it'll like spring out, and they don't necessarily always attack you. They'll run away and like hide, and then as you're like,
they'll run around the corner and change in something else.
So it's like whammy.
Yeah, so you chase after him again. You're like, oh, not again. And then so that shit me up, and I think quite rightly, especially towards the start of the game when
everything's low powered and stuff.
Yeah, there's a great power curve to that game. I think like by like towards the end of it, I'm not scared of anything. I'm that powerful. I've got that much ammunition and like health portions, whatever they were calling it. That I'm not bothered. But yeah, early on, damn, shoot me up. Ellis or El or Elliot, who knows?
Whatever.
Tell me about a memory that you hold dear.
A memory that I hold dear. Well, there's a few of these because obviously I'm a big gamer, but one that most recently is Jay's got me into Animal Crossing.
Oh, that's cute.
I kind of hate them because there is no real structure to them. It is basically just work off your debt. But
simulator.
Yeah, it's just real life, but with cutesy animals. But the conversations that have erupted from us playing Animal Crossing are fantastic. So on our previous attempt to record this section, I was telling you about a lighthouse where we were arguing about who would use said lighthouse.
Yes. I believe we got into a little argument about it. So.
We did. We got into an argument. We got into a massive debate because she was under the impression that, bearing in mind, it's for cosmetic purposes, right? So at night, you can switch it on. But you can't go inside the lighthouse. It's just like, you know how like your character's kind of mini, or like all the characters are the same size. The lighthouse is the same size as you.
Okay.
It's purely cosmetic. It's not decorational. It's not there to like go in and explore or anything like that.
And it doesn't have any sort of physical use. Like
we can switch it on, so it's like a lamp in the shape of a lighthouse.
But there's no mechanic to it. Like there's no difference whether you've got it on or off.
No, it doesn't change. Like it's just
anything.
Yeah, it's just
okay. Just like
a lamp.
Okay.
And we got into this argument of she was adamant that the creature that lives inside this lighthouse must have come from the sea because it's a lighthouse and it's by the sea.
Why? Who lives in the lighthouse?
A lighthouse keeper.
Oh, okay.
But we ended up having this conversation, and bearing in mind we had a few drinks and stuff like that, but we ended up having this conversation that lasted far too long, for about an hour and a half, just us debating and me pointing out that just because it's by the sea doesn't necessarily mean that whatever lives inside it, not that anything does live inside it, comes from the sea. And I don't know why. I think it's more because it was just one of those fun little arguments, that sometimes you get into and you're just like, this argument doesn't lead anywhere. Neither of us are right or wrong. It's pointless. But because it was, I imagine somewhere in Nintendo Studios, the team that works behind Animal Crossing were like, I bet this is going to cause some fucking arguments. And that's why they put it in. And I hold that dear because I'm a sick person, apparently. But what do you hold dear, Liam?
Yeah, so what I hold, a memory I hold dear in gaming was, well, there's a few, but one that sprung to mind almost immediately was right at the start of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. you wake up in a cave, and there's like 3 or 4 rooms, which teaches you the absolute basics of how to move around and do stuff in the world. And then as you come out of the cave, it does like this panning shot because you're on the side of this hill, and like the game's just so vibrant and beautiful, and like the music's amazing. And you start walking down, and it's like this huge vista shot of this. You're on a plateau at the start, and just amazing. Like, remember playing it for the first time and just thinking, wow, like I've played Zelda for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Never really had that sort of, whoa, like I'm in a world here, and yeah, never look back.
To be fair with Zelda, I've played quite a few of them. Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, like them ones. But this was really, for the team that worked behind it, this was like a completely different game. It was a different, but still holds that element of it that makes it a Zelda game.
Yeah.
You've still got Ganon, you've still got Zelda, you've still got Link. Have you heard the theory that Doomslayer and Link are the same person?
I haven't. And how the hell can that be true?
Right. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you first sort of listen to it, but there's quite a few people that have made the link. They both wear green.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Wait.
They do, but that has no connection to them being the same.
They're both locked in some eternal battle against evil.
Okay. Again.
Some of their enemy types that they fight are very similar. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but it's a cool little, I like it. I think it's a cool little theory. And I could, basically over time, he just gets sick of using a sword and just pulls out a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like a laser blade thing in the latest ones, don't it?
Yeah. Well, weirdly enough, the most recent Doom game and Animal Crossing came out at the same time, like the exact same day.
I remember. Yeah.
So there was loads of crossovers of Doom New Horizons, or Animal Crossing Eternal.
Yeah, it's mad because it's like that is the best combination of games to have come out on the same day, because you could happily get both of them, play Doom for a bit, and then when you think oh god, my brain's a little bit mashed, this gore, I just want something nice for a little bit, something to feed my soul with.
Yeah, you can go on Animal Crossing and lose your shit at White House and torment an owl by giving him insects that he doesn't like. I do like that about that. So next one, one that can get fucked in hell by a cactus demon. Right, with the Doom analogy.
Nice segue.
You what, sorry?
Nice segue.
Yeah, I know. Mine, Alien Colonial Marines.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of the original Alien films, not so much of the more recent ones. Well, Prometheus was good. Alien Covenant, bit silly, bit. Yeah, they're all about doing a TV show, I believe. Which a lot of franchises are going that way. So I was super excited when I knew that there was an Alien Colonial Marines game coming out, where it was basically going to be you, a Marine, going in, cleaning up after the movies, after all the aliens have infested. Now, a few alarm bells were there because the game was originally announced, if I remember rightly, in 2001. And it didn't come out until the same year BioShock Infinite came out, which I think was 2011 or 2012.
13, I believe. I've just been listening to a podcast and they were doing best games of 2013, and it came up.
Was Alien Colonial Marines on there?
Funnily enough,
no. Right. Well, I bought it for 50p, and
I thought for a second then you were going to say 50 quid, and I need to check the brick.
No. I bought it for 50p. I was in game, and it was on the counter, and it had the little sticker on that said 50p. And I was like, you know what, I'll get it. And the guy tried to talk me out of it. He was like, just don't. I was like, he was a good salesman because he was trying to talk me out of it. And I took it home, I played it, and it was just a broken mess.
Yeah.
So much so that Gearbox, who unfortunately were the ones that inevitably put their name behind it, had to release a public apology for how bad the game was.
It wasn't broken, and it was sort of just before the time of like patches and stuff.
Yeah.
It was like, this is the game you've got. Like, take it or leave it.
So the history behind it was that originally it was going to be produced by Sega. Sega went bust, and the team that were working on it went bust. So they basically sold it off to another company. The company that bought it got like a half-finished product. So they tried to like patch what they could and get it moving. They eventually went bust. It got shelved for ages until it got re-picked up by another studio. They tried to fix it and were like, nah, this is broken beyond repair. And then 2K and Gearbox picked it up and tried to salvage what they could.
2K and Gearbox doing a shooter like that style. You're thinking, bang on.
Yeah, well, that was it. Like, I thought it was going to be pretty good, but no, it was the AI in it was broken. So you'd be shooting one of the aliens. You know, like when you're playing like an online game and like your game lags. Yeah. And so you'll be shooting somebody and then they'll jump halfway across your field of view. The aliens used to do that. So like 1 minute you'd be shooting them and then the next they'd be on the ceiling and you'd be like, where the fuck is it gone? Yeah. And I couldn't get past the first mission. I ended up like
I definitely played it. I don't know how long for. It was definitely less than an hour, put it that way. And yeah, I got it cheap. I think it was around the era when I was trading games in a lot of the time. You know, you putting a little bit towards and getting like 4 or 5 other games, you know, trying anything out. And I think it might have been that, or it might have been a different game. But when I was buying it, the 2 guys were talking to each other like behind the counter. They're like, "Oh, is this the one that didn't go through beta testing?" And I'm like, "Really? Like, well, they didn't even beta test it." And you're like, "Oh shit." And I was like, fuck it, well, it's just in with what I'm getting anyway. It was only like, I think, 4 quid or something.
Yeah. One of those where you get like one game for free.
Yeah, it was the cheapest one out of the 3 for 2 or whatever. And yeah, I definitely played it. And yeah, I think the nicest way you can describe it is a steaming bag of shit.
Yeah, well, I ended up using the disc as a beer coaster.
There you go.
Yeah. I didn't want to subject anybody else to playing what was effectively a really bad game. And it's the worst thing to happen to the Alien franchise.
And 50p for a coaster ain't bad.
No, and it was quite a trendy coaster, to be fair.
Well, yeah, the artwork's still good. It's still Alien on the network, isn't it?
But yeah, I let my little brother play it for a little bit. Bear in mind when he was playing it, I think he would have been about 6 or something. And even he was just like, no, this is terrible. Like, he was on the phone to Childline as he was like playing it, just like, I've had enough. My brother's abusing me. He's letting me play Alien Colonial Marines, and they're like, we'll send somebody over right away.
Well, mine. So Mine's kind of sort of bittersweet in a way. Bittersweet's not probably the right description, but so I'm just pissed off with this part of this game. So it's Metroid Dread Final Boss.
So this is one you've been recently playing?
Yes. It's not even that old, really. It came out end of 2021. It was my game of the year last year. And brilliant, absolutely a phenomenal game. Like I've never played like something that feels so smooth. And it's just it's brilliant. But anyway, that's not what we're talking. It can get fucked in hell. The final boss. So I've played the game through from start to finish twice, and I've been stuck on the final boss. I must have been killed by that final boss 100 times, probably more. And I know that basically what I'm moaning about is that I'm too shit to beat the boss.
Get good, Scrub.
But I just want to beat the boss and see what happens afterwards.
You've not beat the boss yet.
Still haven't beat the boss.
To be fair, like obviously you know that I'm a huge fan of the Dark Souls games, especially Bloodborne. Shout out to that because it's got the very HP Lovecrafty element to it. It took me, I think, about 3 months to go away, child. Sorry, my curtains are open, so that's gonna break the flow of the podcast. It took me about 3 months to complete to beat the last boss in Bloodborne. Now, if you've not played Bloodborne, which I don't know if you have, or
I played about, I don't know, an hour and a half. I was like,
you've not completed it.
I've not even come close to completing any FromSoft game.
If you get to the canonical ending, so you've got to find these 3 really obscure items that are hidden throughout the game. And so you do the last boss, but then straight away you're in another fight, like that's just as hard, equally just as horrible. It makes you want to cry and die. And yeah, it took me about 3 months to beat that motherfucker.
I feel like that on the standard enemies in Dark Souls.
That's because you've got to get good.
Probably, yeah. I tell you what, usually because after I'd played Metroid Dread through the first time, I completed both the Ori games. If you remember me telling you about them.
Oh yeah. They're the kind of more cutesy Dark Soulsy.
Yeah, so it's side on sort of 2D, sort of jungle world sort of. But it's beautiful, like one of the best looking games you can possibly play. Like the artwork and the way that like stuff will bounce around when you land on it and stuff. It's just it's so amazing. But I got stuck on a few of the bosses, especially on the second one, because the second one's more combat oriented. But yeah, I'd get stuck on the boss. I just wouldn't play the game for a couple of days, play something else, watch some stuff, and then when I go back to it, beat it first time. And I've been like that a lot, for the last 25 years or whatever. But I tried that with Metroid Dread Final Boss. No dice, can't do it. And then I leave it too long to go back, and I forget all the controls and
that's annoying.
So then that's why I started it again. I thought, I'm going to beat this boss. Started it again. Got right to the end again.
Is there like skill points or anything like that? So like redistributing skill points or anything like that?
There's no skill tree, but you acquire new skills and abilities as you go on. So it's one of the sort of defining things of what they call it, like a Metroidvania. You'll acquire, you'll find one route and you're like, I can't get through there. So you come back, you'll find a new ability and you're like, that'll get me through that thing I couldn't get through before. So yeah, it's sort of like that. And you do sort of upgrade your abilities by, again, finding new abilities, and it just makes them better. You can do to like leveling up would be you can find little collectibles that increase the amount of missiles that you can carry, which obviously helps. But yeah, no, I'm just too shit to beat that boss.
You just need to get good, mate.
Yeah,
that's the crux of it. Get good, Scrub. In the immortal words of the Eldritch Lords, get good. And finally, what's another sort of game moment that you'd easily like to forget, just because you still hold it dear? Which I feel like you've kind of already answered this, but you.
I've got another one for this sort of.
Okay. Well, do you want to go first because I went first last time?
Yeah, sure. So this for me, the way I interpreted this was one that I'd like to forget so that I could experience it for the first time again.
That's not the way that I've interpreted it, but that's fine. That's how you've interpreted it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the joy of language. For me, and I know I mention this game all the time on the podcast, but it is one of my favourites. The Last of Us. Like, if I could experience the story of The Last of Us for the
Especially
first,
Last of Us 1.
Yeah, the first one in particular, yeah. If I could experience that for the first time again, like, yeah, because they're like twists and turns and right from the start, and yeah, I just love the way that story pans out and how he becomes a bit softer, and then there's the bit where you play as Ellie and all that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I that is one of those that if I ever I'm in a horrific accident and I lose all my memory, that's on a list of things that I want to rewatch, replay, whatever.
Absolutely.
Like
That's a good one. Not even thought of that. Oh, maybe I'm in a terrible accident. Hey.
Podcast. Yeah. Yeah, make sure everybody should have a list of like if they ever wake up in a after being in like a horrific accident and they can't remember their own fucking name or anything, a list of like top things that you want to replay or like, rewatch. So like for me, BioShock Infinite, I really want to replay that because the sort of twist ending, it's one of those that when you get to it, it's kind of predictable and you do kind of see it coming. But the way that they sort of explain it, the way that they go into it, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
it makes sense now.
That's one that you would like to forget. And how did you interpret it as well?
I interpreted it as I love the franchise, apart from this aspect of it, and it's Spyro, third one.
Okay.
So my issue with Spyro is I love the Spyro games. Probably one of my earliest memories playing video games. My mum, my stepdad got my mum the very first Spyro for PlayStation because it was his and it was in the living room, and she loved it and she was like, "Oh, play this," usually to shut me up. And we bonded. Me and my mother bonded over our love for this little purple dragon, voiced by the Tom Kenny, who voices SpongeBob.
Yeah.
But moving on. The first two games, absolutely fantastic. Although there are the flying sections, which I fucking hate them. They're horrible. I recently went back and completed all the Spyros on PS4 remake, and I still hate the flying sections because they're fucking horrible. They don't do anything but just frustrate people. But the thing that I really hate about the third one is they start introducing new characters that you have to play as. And one in particular is the fucking penguin. And I hate that penguin so much. One, penguins don't fly. That penguin can fly.
Well, dragons don't exist. Sorry to burst your bubble, but you know.
Yeah, but, well, I suppose. Yeah, but in a world where dragons do exist, why a penguin? Why a kangaroo? Why a monkey?
I've never played the Spyro games.
Why? So if
you got to remember, I'm a little bit older than you, and
right.
when they first came out, I was like, nah, they look too kiddish then. And
you were only like 2 years older than that.
Yeah, but I never played. Yeah, just not games that we got. In fact, no, so we had the first one, and I probably played a couple of hours, and I was like, nah, it's not for me, this.
So if anybody wants to apply for Liam's position, just drop your CV in the comments below. Right, well,
fine, yeah, on that sour note, should we move on to the next? In fact, can we have a quick break?
Of course, let's have a quick break.
We'll be back after these messages.
Are you sick and tired of your no?
Yeah.
On to our next subject, which is from our second podcast. We did a fantasy casting couch where we basically selected a bunch of musicians and we basically put together our who we'd like to see play them in movies. With this one, we've kind of gone same sort of thing, but this time it's video game characters. So do you want to pick the first video game character and see who you've got?
Okay, so the first one on my list, which is probably the same as the first one on yours, is Kratos.
Yeah.
For me, if they were to do anything live action, whether it's a film or a TV show, I would want Christopher Judge, who is the guy who played him and voiced him in the 2018 reboot.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I posited this to my brother not so long ago, and he was like, "Okay, I get where you're coming from." He's like, "But he doesn't really look like him." I said, "Well, okay, yeah, he's a black guy, but Kratos has like ashen skin because it's like the ashes of his dead family or something."
Yeah, so, no, it's the ashes of his dead family.
Exactly, yeah. So they just paint him grey, give him the old red stripe. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just do whiteface. It's fine. I give him permission. On all white people, Christopher Judge can do whiteface to do Kratos, and he's got the voice.
He has got the voice, which is half the battle.
Nobody else can match that voice. I'm sorry.
No. Well, I was reading the guy who originally voiced Kratos in the first games. He's got into a bit of trouble recently. I can't remember what it was. So maybe not him. See, I was going to go for Idris Elba.
Okay, so we didn't go too far from each other in a way.
No. I think Idris Elba.
You're giving Idris Elba permission to do whiteface. That's interesting.
He can white up.
We'll have to get the
podcast we do. Get that ashy skin going. I think he'd do it pretty well. And he's one of those that he's up for anything, which not sure he's going to agree with that sentiment, but
yeah, I think he's the right build as well. He's a big chap in it. And
the
age is kind of right as well, because I wouldn't want it to be a young Kratos. I'd want it to be Kratos and Atreus.
Yeah, I think it would be better it being.
Yeah.
But then again, at the same time, like obviously, whilst the games are completely different, the original games, the Greek ones, they've got so much good like story arcs to them.
Yeah.
So in the second God of War, or is it third? One of the God of Wars, you basically got to fight your way through the underworld, and it's such.
I think he does it a couple of times.
Yeah, to be fair, he dies a few times.
That's basically his arc, isn't it? It's like, get killed, go to hell, fight my way out of hell, kill
like, Hades is just there, like, oh, it's you again. How are you doing? And you see Hades' son trying to escape as you're going through. And Kratos, to be fair, that would be a brilliant cameo in the Hades game. Is just as you are like going through, Kratos just coming through like covered in blood, like fucking assholes. The other person that I would potentially cast, Ricky Whittle, an amazing actor who's American Gods, and he was my choice for Slash in the original one. Only purely because he suits the bold look and he is big. He's
a big chap. That's quite interesting that for Kratos we've picked 3 black dudes.
Yeah.
How progressive are we? Fucking hell.
Very progressive. Only because I can't think of any Greek actors. So
okay. I nearly went for he's called Faris, because he's not a bad actor. He looks the part, like sort of from the region. Do you know Joseph Fares, the video game developer who made It Takes Two, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons?
I know the games, but
yeah. So he was a movie director, and like an up and coming one. Like when he was like in his early 20s, he had films being shown at the Cannes Film Festival. But he's like the only director that's made the shift from films to video games.
Yeah.
Like, usually it's the other way around. But yeah, he wants video games, and he does what he wants. But I don't know why I'm talking about him. His brother happens to be an actor. You will have seen him in things. He's been a bad guy in quite a lot of stuff. So it's Fares, Fares twice. But yeah, he sort of has the look. Like if he shaved his head, he's a big chap as well. I think he's got the nose. But yeah, I think good choices there. But with what we've gone with the original,
a lot of good choices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Swedish.
The next one though. Now this is the one that I've been looking forward to your suggestions for, because arguably I hold these two characters more dear than you do.
Yes.
I went first. Go on, you go first.
So the next characters are Joel and Ellie from the Last of Us series, which being made into a TV show by HBO, probably be an amazing adaptation. You know, it's
as well. Let's just touch on their castings quickly. Like we've already mentioned Pedro Pascal, which that's brilliant. He's going to be amazing. We know that. I don't know her name, bless her, but the girl from
Logan.
Yeah, no, is she from Logan?
Yeah,
no,
she's
no. It's the.
Oh, it's the girl from Logan.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was the girl from Game of Thrones.
What, Maisie Williams?
No. She was she was a young lord. Like there's all these big dude lords.
I was trying to figure out her fucking name because I actually think she would make a really good Ellie, but no, it's the girl from Logan.
I'm gonna have to Google this because I'm pretty sure it's not the girl from Logan. Last of Us TV casting. Yeah, no, it's the girl from Game of Thrones, dude. It's called Bella Ramsey.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah. So and she was great in that, and she was even younger then. So I think it's going to be sort of perfect, like age-wise now.
I thought it was the.
No, which isn't a bad shout. Like she was pretty good. The girl from Logan, she was really good.
I think she was in the running for it at one point.
Would make sense, yeah.
Oh, to be fair, that's who I would pick to play Ellie. I was trying to figure out a fucking name. I couldn't remember the name of the character. So when in Game of Thrones, so when I was like doing this, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, what's her name? I've gone for Bradley Cooper to play Joel.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
He's got the look. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Pedro Pascal, brilliant choice. I think he will do it really, really well. However, if I was to cast it myself, it would be Bradley Cooper playing Joel. And then for my Ellie, slightly older casting. She's called Caitlin Dever.
Oh, I know who you mean. I think it might be Dever,
whichever. Hey, now she's 25, so she's not necessarily the
younger.
The character. The person that you've got to play her is probably closer in age and more likely to pull it off.
She's quite young looking. She could get away with being like 19, 20, like she's in Last of Us 2.
Yeah, maybe for like an older depiction, but she was in a really good TV show called Unbelievable, which was based on a real story.
Amazing. Great show, that.
The rape cases, absolutely fantastic, and she plays one of the main girls. I think she would make a really good Ellie because she kind of looks a little bit like Ellie already.
Yeah, she does, especially in that show. Actually,
yeah,
like downbeating and stuff. She needs to be a bit more sort of badass because, like, Ellie doesn't stay down. You know, she's tough, isn't she? It's like, she wouldn't, be in that, wow, whatever. But so for mine, it's kind of funny how you mentioned the girl from Logan, because my choice for Joel is Hugh Jackman.
That is a good shout.
Dude can act. He's got the frame. He's got the sort of gruffness. I think he's probably, like, again, we've probably both overshot the age slightly, like I have with my Ellie as well. No, I don't think you have with. Well, I suppose Bradley Cooper is probably similar age to Hugh Jackman, maybe a bit younger.
No, I think he's a bit younger.
But I don't think it really matters. They can, move the magic.
Well, in all fairness, with Last of Us, there's going to be a time jump.
Yeah, at some point.
About 15 years.
Yeah, so from when the world ended to the start of the game proper, yeah, it's about 15 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think the start of the second one, I think it's another 4 years. I think 4 or 5 years. But yeah, so for my Ellie, I've chosen, again, she's kind of a bit older. But she's called Rosa Salazar. So she's the girl that played. Have you seen Alita Battle Angel?
No, but I know who you mean.
So the main girl in that, and obviously in that she's had like weird CGI stuff done to her face, so like her eyes are huge and what have you. But she's sort of got a look. Obviously she's Latina or whatever. But she's really good at that sort of like that Ellie sort of. I know she's kind of like an architect, really. Yeah, like sort of a snot-nosed little teenager that's doesn't want to conform, wants to do her own thing, a bit rebellious. And I think she'd do well. But I think the reason I struggled getting a younger one is because I don't watch a lot of stuff that have like young like kid actors in.
Yeah,
I struggled with that a little bit.
And like I feel like it's one of those that if you can memorize like teen actors, then you probably need to be put on a list.
Well, that's it. I didn't know her name. I googled Alita Battle Angel actress.
Yeah,
it showed me her. I'm like, there we go.
I think I did. Like, I'm probably going to get a knock at the door at some point because I think I did Google young actresses.
Yeah. See, I nearly pressed the little magnifying glass on that, but I was like, oh no, FBI watching.
Yeah, no, probably not a good thing to do.
The next one's quite interesting because there is a show coming.
There is,
but we haven't seen the casting yet.
I was wrong on the last casting, who I thought it was. Horribly wrong, which I'll hold my hand up and say. I'm sure she was in the running for it at one point, but so for Aloy, Horizon series, it's what's her face from fucking Game of Thrones, the wildling that Jon Snow falls in.
Because that's who I've picked for my.
Oh well, there you go.
He's joking. Wait, I'm having a look at the cast now. Oh, she is on the cast. What's it saying here?
I think she plays Aloy.
Well, she's got red hair. Who else is she going to be playing? They've got Lance Reddick on board anyway. Oh, shit.
He'll be playing Silas.
Well, yeah, obviously. Who the fuck else is he going to play?
No, Aloy. What's her face? I'll play Silas.
Oh yeah. And then they'll have Red playing Aloy.
Right. Well, you fucked up because you didn't do your research. So,
Great. You go first. You go first.
I picked Sadie Sink from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I think as well because it's very difficult to sort of gauge how old Aloy is in the games.
Yeah, she's about 18 in the first one.
She's about 18.
Yeah, so it's like a coming of age thing at the start.
Yeah. Well, I knew she was sort of around that age, but it's difficult because she doesn't. They're not like, oh, happy 18th birthday. Yeah. And you don't see like a date of birth or anything. Like, you know what I mean? So I picked Sadie Sink because one, I think she's a phenomenal actress. She's ginger. That helps. And I think she's young enough that she could carry the series for a while. Because obviously when you start looking at like TV shows more so, there is that element of it where you've got to like, you know, like that was one of the things they really struggled with Game of Thrones is because each season, because in Game of Thrones, between season 1 and the last season, I can't remember the exact time scale that was meant to sort of take place, but with how quickly the kids age, like it did mess up the continuity a little bit. But she's at the end now where she could probably carry the show for a while.
Yeah.
So go on, who's your pick?
Oh, not well from the same show, really. Who is the other redhead in Game of Thrones? Yep, there we go.
I think she's too tall though.
Well, I don't think she's actually that tall.
No, I'm pretty certain she's like 6 foot.
She's not 6 foot. I'll tell you what, I googled it before, so let's see if it's got a.
To be fair, no, I could see that.
But exactly, and it doesn't really matter like about height because
you can just chop her legs off. She'll be right.
Look at the third Batman film, the Nolan one. Christian Bale is like 6'2", whereas
Tom Hardy's like 5'11".
He's like 5'8", 5'9".
Oh, is he? Is he?
He's not a tall dude. No. So, and obviously he looks huge as Bane. So you know, there's wizardry. There's wizardry involved. It's fine. But yeah, I think sort of similar to your point. Like I think Sophie Turner's younger than your what was she called?
Sadie Sink.
Huh?
Sadie Sink.
Oh, Sadie Sink. Yeah. Oh no. In fact, no. Sadie Sink's younger, isn't she? Yeah. But I think Sophie Turner's probably young enough to, like you said, carry the show on. I'm not convinced that these shows are going to go that far. These sorts of video game adaptation shows doing like 2-3 series, maybe 4 at a push. I don't know.
My concern is that I think they've sort of jumped on the bandwagon of like, because the games have been massively popular. They've got a huge fandom, but there's only 2 games. So I agree with you. I don't personally think that there's enough to sort of correlate a full story. Whereas, say, Last of Us, you've got quite a lot of scope there. Like you don't even have to just focus on Joel and Ellie to flesh out the series.
No, absolutely. You could do a Tommy series. Like what happens to Tommy? Like between when we see him in the first like scene of the first game and when you meet up with him 15 years later, like I'd love to see some of that. Why not? Like how Jackson got built, how they set up Jackson, stuff like that. Like, there's so much that they can flesh out. That there is the potential there. I don't know. I think we need to see one of them come out and see how well it does. That's going to be the defining thing. Like, I think the first one is going to be The Last of Us, isn't it? Out of these Sony produced ones that are, I think it's next year. They've slated The Last of Us for.
I thought tail end of this year, but again,
originally it was.
wrong about the casting.
Originally this year it was supposed to be at like sort of
it's HBO, right?
They've well, it's a partnership
with HBO
and Sony TV, who incidentally also make the show I was on about earlier, the space one, For All Mankind.
For All Mankind.
Yeah, that's a Sony produced show, but distributed by Apple. But yeah, I think jury's out. Like, I'm looking forward to them. Really excited. I think they're going to be good, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
No. I mean, obviously, historically, video game adaptations haven't always been the best.
Yeah.
I can only think of one or two that I would say were mediocre at best. The first Silent Hill film, I enjoyed that only because it's horror and it was Silent Hill. It wasn't great, but it was up there. And the Prince of Persia film that was produced by Disney.
That wasn't terrible, actually.
That wasn't too bad. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Wasn't awful.
It had Ben Kingsley.
It did, yeah. Ben Kingsley was like the
sort of baddie.
Yeah.
And then you had Gemma Atwell. Was it Gemma Atwell?
I think so.
That sort of played love interest, and that wasn't too bad. So, moving to next
did I go first then, or did you go? You went first then.
I went first, so it's you this time.
Yeah. So the next one we've got Max Payne, and now quick caveat: nothing against Mark Wahlberg.
He was shit.
I think he was shit, but I think the whole script and like it was one of those sort of it was around 2010-ish sort of time, I want to say, roughly.
It was earlier than that, to be honest.
Yeah, it may well be, and it's still well within the realm of any sort of video game adaptation being just god awful, you know. But for mine, I've gone for John David Washington. He's the dude from he's the main guy in Tenet. He's done all sorts. Do him a quick Google. You'll recognise him second you see him. Oh, he's in Us. Is it called Us? No, not Us. The other Jordan Peele one.
Get Out.
Get Out. Yeah, he's in Get Out.
Is he?
He is. He's not one of the main parts. He's like one of the black guys that they've captured already, and he's got like that little suit and a weird hat on, and then they take a picture of him with the flash, and he's like, "Oh, what the hell?" Oh, so, man.
I know I was shit at calling this out earlier, but no, that's not. That's the guy who plays Elf in. What the fuck is he called? He's in Atlanta. He's in this John David Washington. He's in Black Klansman, which is an amazing film, again based on a true story.
Oh no, yeah, I've done the thing, haven't I? Yeah, no, you're right, but he is in Tenet.
He's also in Inception.
Was he in Inception?
Yeah, I don't know who he plays because I hate that movie.
I liked that film.
Nah, I thought it was shit. But yeah, no, that's an interesting choice. A very progressive choice.
I think he's good at doing the sort of like depressed, like serious guy. Because I think if you're going to do Max Payne, it has to be, a proper drama.
Yeah.
You've got to lean into it. It's got to be a thriller, and kind of dark. And, he's got to have his family killed at the start. Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
So I've gone for my casting. I've gone from more Max Payne 3, so at the sort of tail end of his shooting career.
Yeah.
And I've gone for Bryan Cranston.
Okay.
Only because I feel like he plays that character. He plays Walter White amazingly. And I just feel like I can't think of anything where he's played like a hardcore gruff character. Like, yeah. I mean, obviously in Breaking Bad, he eventually becomes that character.
Timid and shy and kind of no confidence at all when it first begins. Like that arc is got to be one of the best character arcs going.
Exactly. It's basically summarized. He goes from being what's his face? Everybody's like favorite granddad, Mr. Walters.
Yeah, the guy that Tom Hanks played recently.
Yeah, Mr. Walters to Scarface.
Yeah.
And I just think that Bryan Cranston, especially like when in Max Payne 3, he shaves his hair off, and you know he's got that bold look. He's slightly overweight.
If you go for the whole sort of Max Payne 3 vibe, then yeah, I think that'd work as well. Like maybe if you did like obviously don't I always think with these sorts of adaptations, it's important to have them separated. Like one is a source material, the other is another IP almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't have them too closely linked because there's always going to be that comparison of, oh, well, you've got this coming, you've got this coming. The best way I would want them to do it is like how they adapt a comic into a TV show or a
like the Boys.
movie. Like the Boys, yeah, absolutely, because they've gone absolutely off the rails from what it was in the comic. Like it's a completely different story, but there's a lot of the same characters, it's the same world, and just do like that. Like, you've got all the pieces, just make a new story.
I could see them if they were going to do the sort of Max Payne film or TV series, whatever. I could see them go in like almost like a John Wick style. These big intense sequences. I can
see that, but I'd want them to be more visceral and more sort of grounded and realistic. You know, like don't get me wrong, I love John Wick, but it's all very choreographed and blah blah blah. But with Max Payne, it was they were hard games, man. Like
especially the first two.
Yeah, but even the third one, like you get shot in the head, you're dead.
That is true.
Oh, okay, yeah. You get shot in the toe, you only lose a little bit of health. Like that was like it doesn't do that in any other game either, really.
No.
Like, first, like a single player, like story driven game.
I mean, it's usually like a game mode that you can introduce where if you get shot in the head, you death. Who's next?
I'll go first on this one just because I've barely played any of these games, so I don't have much to contribute.
Okay.
So it's B.J. Blazkowicz.
From the Wolfenstein series.
There we go. So I said it right. By the way, BJ also stands for something funny. Never played the games really. Jam. Yeah, Blue Jam. Yeah, I never really played many of the games. They're all on Game Pass, so I did download one of them not so long ago. You can probably tell me which one it is. The starting level is you're on either a submarine or a boat, and you're in a wheelchair, but you've still got guns, and you're going up and down the corridors of this boat shooting bad guys. Wasn't for me. Didn't enjoy it. So my suggestion to play him in a film / TV show would be Ron Jeremy.
The porn star?
Yes. Because I know nothing about this guy. I have no idea where he's from, what he does, what he stands for. So I'm like, let's just throw a big dick in there. He'll sort the answers out.
So... Why not?
So have I thrown you off a bit there?
No. I think that would work very well. My choice is Alan Richardson, who he was. I was trying to figure out like a best one thing that you'll probably know him from.
Alan who?
Richardson.
Richardson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ritchson. He's a big dude.
Okay. Yep, I know exactly who he is. Yep.
Yeah, he's Blue Mountain State, the comedy show.
And Titans. He's in Titans on Netflix.
Oh yeah, no, he is. He's in Titans. Yep. I can't remember who he plays.
Hawk.
Yeah, he's got the look. He looks a bit like B.J. Blazkowicz.
He plays Jack Reacher in the Amazon series, which is actually very good.
Well,
and he's really good in it because he like apparently in the books of Jack Reacher, he was a massive guy, like a huge meathead. And in the show, there's like half an hour where he doesn't say a lick, doesn't say a single thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, who's this big guy?" And he just looks at them like, "Oh shit."
Yeah,
it does really well. I think,
in the movie adaptation, it was it was Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it was.
Which didn't work.
He's like what, 5'1"?
Yeah, he has to stand on a box every time he's in a film, otherwise the camera can't pick him up.
When he was having his wedding photos, they dug a trench for his wife.
We'll move on to the next one. Somebody that I'm sure you're fully aware. Solid Snake.
Yeah, I've got a two-pronged attack to this one.
I've just thought of one recently. When we started recording.
Initially, like, because there is a casting, like there is a movie sort of in development. I say sort of because they've not filmed a thing yet. Apparently they've not filmed the thing. Apparently they're still working on a script, and they're still trying to get directors attached. So it's one of those. It's going to be like a labor of love, I think. But the guy that they've got cast as Solid Snake is Oscar Isaac. We mentioned earlier.
You mentioned that to me.
I'm okay with that. Like, I'm a fan of his work. But the one that I'm going to go for, which really just because I like legacy stuff. So obviously the Solid Snake is based off Snake Plissken, the main character in Escape from New
York.
And Escape from LA, was there? Maybe I'm making that up. But yeah, definitely Escape from New York. And that was who? That was Kurt Russell. Yeah. So I was like, well, how can we modernize it? How about we have his son? So his son, Wyatt Russell. And he's a damn good actor. And I think he's got he's a big dude. Like, he's got sort of the soul of the villain.
In that Black Mirror episode. Absolutely fantastic.
He can grow his hair. Like, they can dye it brown or whatever, because I think he's a bit blonde. But yeah, I think why not keep it in the family and then have Kurt Russell turn up as like Ocelot or something? Yeah,
or what's the big baddie called? Is it just called Big Boss or something like
that? Big Boss. Yeah, Big Boss.
It's dumb. So fucking dumb. Weird little trivia about Kurt Russell. Supposedly, when Walt Disney died, literally just before he died, he wrote a note down, and the note just said Kurt Russell, and nobody knows why. Like, was he meant to be the heir of Disney?
Did Walt Disney die before Kurt Russell was born?
No. Kurt Russell's been around for quite a while.
Like since like what, the 70s probably?
Yeah, well, Walt Disney didn't die until like the 70s.
Ooh.
Maybe 60s. Maybe.
That's it, if you died in the 60s, and it's like, well, how did you know who Kurt Russell was?
Kurt Russell's been acting since he was a kid.
Oh.
He's been acting since a small child.
That makes it far, far worse.
Yeah.
We already knew that Walt Disney was a massive racist and a huge anti.
I knew that. And he basically stole a lot of his ideas from other people.
Yep. And then he sacked him.
Fleischer, who created Betty Boop and Sammy the Cat. Disney basically stole a lot of, and really depressing fact is that Max Fleischer's son went on to go and work for Walt Disney and tried to get Max Fleischer to work for Disney, but Max was like, no, I want nothing.
The choice is that Disney is still doing this shit.
Yeah, I know.
So the creators of like the different Marvel characters, who they had a fairly decent relationship with Marvel, now that Marvel's been absorbed by Disney, all of these creators are getting basically nothing. Like they're making films, they're making billions off of the films that they're making from the characters that they created, and they're getting naff all.
Well, I was reading an article about the some of the people that work on like the CGI and shit.
Yeah.
The Marvel movies, and that they are basically slaves to the production, which isn't great. Quickly moving on, I'll quickly give you my suggestion. I can never pronounce his feckin' name.
Okay.
Nicolaj Coster-Waldau.
Okay.
Jamie Lannister.
Jamie Lannister, yeah.
I just think he looks hard. I think he's got that scrawny. He was actually my favorite, even though I do like Henry Cavill as Geralt. I think he's a bit too bulky.
I could see him as Geralt.
Yeah, like Geralt's got a bit.
I'm not sure I agree that Henry Cavill's too bulky, because if you see if you see Geralt in the games without a top on, like it's ridiculous. He is and stuff. Like I don't think Nikolai whatever. He's not going to be that cut.
Oh no, he can be.
I'm not sure. Like he's a bit older as well. Like it's harder to get that cut at that age. Like, but I sort of agree. Like I think it's a great shout.
Would be a good casting.
Oh yeah.
And we're gonna end now on our hypothetical question.
Oh, I thought we were going to do the
space of time. I'm just gonna.
Okay, we can add that to the next one. Yeah.
So the hypothetical question this week is: you could go back to any time period.
Oh, are you still there?
Fantasy world.
Sorry, dude, you broke up. I didn't hear any of that.
No, Liam, we have a thing going, apart from the fact you don't like.
You froze.
Froze?
Yeah, all I heard was if I could go back to any time period.
Right, so you could go back to any time period, or you can go and live in any fantasy world. Which one would you pick? And which time period and which fantasy world would you pick?
I would probably pick fantasy world, and I don't know, maybe like the Elder Scrolls world or Middle Earth. Like I'm kind of a fantasy dude. I like sci-fi, but
I feel like fantasy you could sort of get away with just having a normal life. Sci-fi, something's going to go wrong.
Sci-fi, there's a lot more danger involved.
Yeah.
If you're in space, one little thing goes wrong, you're dead.
I'd go back to
fantasy, and I'd be like a goat herder or something. Just
I'd go back to an age of piracy.
That's not bad. But would you be a pirate or one of the British chasing you?
I'd be a pirate.
Okay.
I'd be a captain of my own ship.
Yeah.
The Unsinkable. And then we'd
call you ship.
What?
You'd call your ship the Unsinkable.
Yes. And then we'd
sail
into the Arctic and we'd crash into icebergs and sink the icebergs. But no, I'd probably go back to the golden age of piracy and be a pirate.
Good shout. I'm going to change my answer. I want to be a Viking.
They were very much the early days, the cooler pirates. They had horns on their head. Pirates just had a patch and a parrot.
But your pirates were in the Caribbean, where it's much nicer weather.
That is a good point. But the Vikings did get as far down as Morocco. So,
well, there's some studies. They reckon that the Vikings were the first to discover America, the first Europeans to discover America.
I was going to say, I think the natives got there before then. There's a lot of evidence.
It's crazy that they were going across in a longboat with 50 dudes.
Yeah,
rowing in one sail. That's mental. That they made it.
I think there's a film about it, to be fair,
Yeah.
about the first Vikings that actually went to America. In fact, there's an entire saga about it. You can read about the historical person and where they landed.
Yeah, wasn't it the Redwood Forest? Because he wrote about massive trees that were like the size of mountains, and they were like fucking that like massive. Like it was like 10 paces to get around it or something.
Yeah, but they left because of if I remember rightly, they ended up leaving because of the natives that were there. Like they spooked them, and they were just like, "No, this land's cursed." But that has been another Untitled, whatever we call it, this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for any final thoughts, Liam.
Only that we're going to make it our job this week to name the podcast.
That could be your job.
Okay. Well,
because I'm just like,
I'll come up with a suggestion or two.
Or maybe we can get some people to put some comments underneath. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how it works. We're just doing this because it's a passion project. We love doing this. So thank you for listening. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.